Step number 3 is to break your working title into its components. You need to break this title into as many parts or components as possible. For example, the keywords in the current example is one, poverty, and second, export oriented economy. What you need to do actually is try to see what are the concepts, whether the concept is an institution, is it a law, is it an organization, and we try to break it into its parts, as many parts as possible. For example, if it is poverty, we can look for rate of unemployment, we can look for purchasing power. That is as many parts as possible. Export oriented economy. So if it is export oriented economy, we can look for the different constituent parts. For example, export volume, export facilities, tariffs on exports, subsidies given for exports. So many things. So try to break the keywords into, try to break the title into as many parts as possible. Step number 4 is the measurement. Now at this step, you need to understand what are the factors that require measurement. You are trying to conduct a scientific research, so at this stage you need to decide what particular factors require measurement. It's very important for any scientific research. If it is poverty, rate of unemployment. If it is poverty, for example, as we mentioned earlier, purchasing power parity, volume of exports. So you need to decide what are the factors that you have to measure so that you can substantiate your thesis statement. Keep that spirit in mind. Your thesis statement is the spirit. You are trying to prove that export oriented economy can eradicate poverty. So that spirit is there to guide you. What you need to measure so that you can substantiate or prove your thesis statement. Step number 5 is extract variables. This is very important. Variables are, we will do a separate video on variables inshallah. Variables are special concepts. Variable is a special concept that bring variation. It's a concept that gets changed or bring change in other variables. So you need to identify what are the variables involved in your research. Generally, we try to differentiate between the variables in terms of dependent variable and independent variable. That is also very helpful for understanding the entire research process. Let me give you another example. Role of social media in increasing public participation in politics. So in that case, social media is an independent variable that can play a significant role in increasing public participation in politics. So public participation in politics depends on media, social media, electronic media. What are these? These are independent variables that can bring change in the dependent variables. Step number 6. Once you have extracted the variables, then you need to relate them and try to develop hypotheses. Hypotheses are actually tentative solutions of the problems. For example, if we look back again on our thesis statements, eradication of poverty. So you need to firstly develop or prove an association between variables. Market-oriented economy is associated with actions for eradicating poverty. You need to firstly break down market-oriented, export-oriented economy, extract variable from this key factor, and then extract variable from the other key factor. So it is the hypothesis actually which will move the entire research process towards its logical end. So you need to develop a hypothesis at step 6. Step number 7 is to establish your research objectives. Looking at the research gap that you identified, looking at the variables that you extracted, and looking at the hypothesis that you developed, now you need to establish the objectives of your research even before starting the research. Yes. When we say objectives of research, it means what kind of information your research will produce. What are you going to accomplish through this research project? Research objectives are closely related with your research questions. So you see, you need to see a connection between thesis statement and research objectives. So if you see a viable connection between your thesis statement, title, the working title, and objectives, then things are okay. So you need to be highly careful on this occasion, on this stage of your research. Topic selection is the backbone of your entire research project. Follow these steps one by one. I'm very hopeful that if you follow these 7 steps carefully, then there is no problem that you are going to succeed, inshallah.